Welcome to Charles Dickens' A Brain on Fire, a series that digs deep into the life and works of one of the greatest novelists of all time. Hi everyone. Today's guest is an actress, poet, and playwright. As a writer, she has been commissioned by Sky Arts, The Barbican, and Roundhouse, and was twice selected for the BBC's World's First Poetry Project. And now, as an actress, she has just made her television debut as Biddy in FX's Great Expectations, and is currently touring with the National Theatre's adaptation of Neil Gaiman's The Ocean at the End of the Lane. I'm thrilled to welcome the brilliant Laurie Ogden. Laurie, welcome to Charles Dickens' A Brain on Fire. It's so great to have you here.
Oh, it's lovely to be here.
So, you're playing Biddy in the FX Great Expectations.
Mm-hmm.
What I would love to know, first of all, then, is when the breakdown came through from your agent, what did it say?
Oh, I think it said something like sweet, kind-hearted girl, and Pip's childhood best friend, something like that. Quite a short breakdown. But I'd previously read the book, so I already had an idea of who she was and what she's about.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think in this series, obviously Stephen Knight makes a lot of changes with the characters and where they go in terms of their plot, but Biddy feels 100% the person, to me anyway, that Dickens wrote in the book. Did you make any reference back to the book yourself when you were preparing to play her, or was it all in the script itself?
No, I'd actually, because I'd read it many years ago, and then I'd revisited it a couple of years before this. But I think that although her core is still the same, there are some kind of key changes, I think, in this adaptation. And I think, because all writing's collaboration, right? Like sometimes it's an incredibly solo project at the beginning, but then you're collaborating with the reader and their imagination, and with screenplays we're like collaborating with the actors and the directors, and then eventually the viewers. So I kind of wanted to make sure I was responding to Stephen's version of Biddy as much as the original Biddy, so we're all kind of in a wider collaboration with each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so you go into the audition then. What was the process of that? You don't have to spare any details. This is fascinating stuff. You went in for your casting. Where was it? Who did you meet?
So it just started with a self-tape.
That gives hope to many actors out there that have a miserable time with self-tapes. Because how do you feel about that? Because they're so difficult, aren't they? You have that anxiety that, are they actually going to watch this damn thing that I've taken over my entire day to make?
Well, I think you've got to be strict with yourself with self-tapes, haven't you? Not take your entire day. You've got to give yourself like 3 to 5 takes max and send it off, because you never know what's going to happen the other end. I know it started with a self-tape. It was actually one of the sides was one of the scenes where she speaks French, but it hadn't been translated yet. So I panic messaged a friend of mine who speaks French to get him to help me.
Oh, so you don't speak French yourself very strongly?
No, I don't. I had a wonderful coach as part of this, and I also had a friend of mine who helped me in prep for the audition. So I was very lucky. No, I unfortunately do not speak French. I'm not as intelligent as Biddy.
Not at all, because that whole French section is a fantastic. It happens in the second episode. It's so touching, isn't it, and powerful, and all the subtext that's being played with you and Pip, doing that. Wow. So you had to speak French for your self-tape then?
Yes, exactly. Yes, well, for that section, and actually my recalls were all over Zoom. So I didn't actually come in the room until I came in for my fittings, which I know isn't the case for everyone, but I think we're still in an unusual post-COVID process, aren't we, really? So I felt very lucky. It was quite a fairly swift process, but I think I just fell in love with the character, and that's how we got here.
And when you then get the script, did you, because obviously you had the recalls over Zoom then, was there a company read-through where you all got to assemble and meet each other and go through the whole episodes?
Yeah, so there was a company read-through of I think maybe it was the first or second episode, because the others were still being developed, but
right.
But I hadn't been cast yet. I was still in the casting process, so I actually missed the read-through. So, but I did get to have a rehearsal where I briefly met Bronte, who plays Little Biddy, and Shalom and Finn, and so I felt, comfortable with all of them before I got on set, which was lovely.
That's lovely. And yeah, and Bronte obviously plays the younger Biddy.
Yes.
And she's excellent, isn't she, Bronte Carmichael? And did you talk about the character together, or did you just talk about anything else but the character? How did
Yeah.
you?
We just had a chat, got to know each other. We talked a bit about the character, how we felt she moved and sounded, and me and her mum swapped numbers and would message each other little thoughts and see how filming days were going and things. Yeah, she's lovely. She's a very special actress.
That's so interesting that you say that you had that contact, because when you do change, when she does change to you, it's pretty seamless, isn't it? You don't. It takes a
Well,
when Finn walks in, I think into the probably outside into the playground. I think is that the moment we first see you as Biddy.
yes.
Yeah, and it's so seamless. And you think, oh my god, no, that's you. That's you. She's changed because it's not so sudden. It's not so obvious. Yeah, I thought it was really clever.
You actually see me. I just thought you actually see me briefly. I think just before in the church, turning around.
Yes,
I
that's
think
you,
in an
isn't
earlier
it?
episode, you see Bronte do exactly the same movement, but it's so quick. So I don't know whether everyone would pick up on that. And I think part of that's in the hair and the costuming as well. It's such an incredible team working on this to make that hopefully be seamless.
Yeah. Dickens is accused sometimes, certainly, of writing impossibly good women. And but I feel that Biddy, I totally believe she exists and she's real, and I don't see that she's too much of an angel.
I think I can see how reading the novel, because we're coming from Pip's perspective as well, how she can seem like too much of an angel. One of his what do they call them? Dickens saintly women.
Yeah.
I don't think she is for me. I think she is driven by her own wants. She is helping Pip, but he is her best friend and she is in love with him. So it's not a completely selfless act.
Yeah.
And I think what I found interesting was filming with Shalom for episode 4, the quiet rage that I felt whilst in character. Obviously, working with Shalom, she's wonderful. But I think that, she's not just this perfect saintly person who wants, who doesn't have her own wants and needs and her own judgments of people like Estella. She judges Pip for being a snob and for wanting that stuff, but I do think she also has her own like strongly held views about people like Estella, and I think that Shalom brings such a depth to Estella that it just makes it not clear cut that you could just hate Estella and be done with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, that scene in the schoolroom, which obviously doesn't happen in the book in episode 4, where Shalom as Estella comes in, and you have this kind of strange meeting in the schoolroom, and you can't work out what Estella's doing. She says, I don't care about Pip, but you should know that he's in trouble.
Yeah.
It's so weird, isn't she? Because she says, I don't love, I don't care, and yet her actions, her behaviour seems to do things that contradict that.
Mm-hmm. I feel like for me, there's a moment where in that scene, when Biddy could absolutely go off on her. But I think that Estella, in Shalom's interpretation of her, lets this little crack through of vulnerability that I think Biddy picks up on. And then it's like you're saying, the shutters come straight back down. She's like, you think I care, And the Ice Queen kind of returns before she leaves. So you think there's going to be some kind of progress or something between them. And then it's Estella cuts it right down.
Yes. That thing you're saying also about Biddy being driven by her own wants, and I think that's actually in the book as well. I just don't think Dickens really, or Pip doesn't really say that about her. I think that's definitely there, because she goes, there's this fantastic bit about typical Pip. The best step I could take towards making myself uncommon was to get out of Biddy everything she knew. And then it's like, Biddy was the most obliging of girls. She immediately said she would and began to carry out her promise within 5 minutes. So you think, yeah, Biddy is clearly driven by something there. But I can't help noticing in what I've seen. I've seen all the episodes now. Have you seen all the episodes?
I have.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I'm so annoyed in one sense that we can't talk about episodes.
I know that was me. Just so much just then. I was like, oh.
Yeah, I know. But there is one thing there is a recurring theme that I've noticed, and it happened with Bronte, and it's happened with you, is that so often when Biddy appears, she seems to be appearing in sunlight.
Oh, yeah.
Even when you're talking to Finn outside in the schoolyard, you say goodbye, and then you walk off, and then this big sunlight shaft kind of falls on you. So there is still something impossibly good. I mean, as the character, I feel like and it's quite a hard-hitting adaptation, isn't it? But I feel like with Biddy, she's always bringing goodness. You have a sense that there's goodness about her, and that she will
Yeah.
bring light into Pip's life and the lives of people around her.
Yeah, I think you need that light as well. I think if some of the moral of the story is like kindness and patience versus like self-interest, or whether Pip would be happier with this kind of life rather than trying to be a gentleman. I think it's really important to me that Biddy she is like sunlight, but she's also like it's not just, I see her described a lot as a simple, kind-hearted girl, and to me she's not, like you're saying, like he gets all this information from her. I think there's a quote somewhere in the book that's like, whatever he knew or whatever Pip knew, Biddy knew. Like she's as intelligent as he is. And I think when we're talking about like the themes around social class and things like that in the book, I think he could be, for me, and I'm obviously biased, he could be as happy with Biddy. She doesn't have the airs and the graces, but like she's intelligent and she's warm and she's kind, and the kind of person I think we should all kind of strive to be. But obviously I'm biased because I'm playing it. So
No, but you completely persuaded me. I agree with that 100%. But it's interesting that you said that. Yeah, he could be happy with Biddy. It's all in there. It's all in there in the screenplay, but it's all there in the book. When Pip is describing Biddy in the book, he says she was common and could not be like Estella, but she was pleasant and wholesome and sweet-tempered. She had curiously thoughtful and attentive eyes that were very pretty and very good. So you think, oh, okay. So in that one bit, he's going about, well, she's not like Stella. She's not dazzling, but oh no, her eyes are actually very pretty. And then you see in the goodness again. So it's all in there.
I feel like it's that thing, like me and one of the directors, Brady Hood, talked about how we both used to, relate to Pip in some way, in us both like not being from London, being from the North, kind of seeing this way of speaking, this way of living, and this kind of dreaming of like you having to get out to be something better. And I think, for me, part of Pip's infatuation with Estella is, where he could be and what he could be, and not being happy with who he already is. And if he was to choose Biddy, he'd have to also be happy with his own lot and who he is and where he's from and what he's made of. And obviously he's not. That's why he dreams of kind of being a gentleman, escaping, having this better life, and that would have to be Estella. That couldn't be Biddy.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, we're still a very London-centered country, aren't we?
Yes.
In terms of getting on in your career and your life, how do you find that? Because you're working with the National Theatre at the moment, aren't you? And you're doing one of their tours, and it's still the sort of the tower to scale, isn't it? I think in some ways, that citadel.
Yeah, I think people are a lot more interested now, in regional voices. But I think it's still an ongoing battle. I think also when you're growing up, you're told, if you're not from a certain place, or if you don't sound a certain way or look a certain way, you won't succeed. And I think that's less and less true. But I think it is still a thing that people and in the eye, like brush up against. And but you get good at accents, and then you just play all the Southern characters anyway.
Yeah, and the Southerners go, "What just happened? I thought I'm actually a Southerner." Yeah, that's been going on for years. Because in the '60s, you had all these Northern actors playing posh parts, didn't you?
Yeah,
and all the sort of posh people going, "Hang on a minute!" You'd have Tom Courtenay in there. How dare you? And even people like Ian McKellen, and Patrick Stewart. They kind of they do their sort of
Yeah,
I think they're sounding more Northern these days. I think they're sounding more Northern.
I think they're revealing their true selves,
They are their true selves. Yeah.
Now it's safe to.
but you decided. Obviously, then for Biddy, you went for a Southern accent. She's actually quite RP, isn't she?
Yeah, I think mine's slightly like less so. I think I did a much stronger accent when I'm casting for it, but it was just trying to find the balance, I think, between where Finn's at in his voice, and how they like his Pip, and how they kind of sound similar. And yeah, that was like an interesting thing to kind of figure out. And hopefully she doesn't surprise sound Northern anywhere. Don't tell me if she does.
No, she doesn't. She doesn't at all. And the French speaking was excellent. Just even I thought that was so good. But it's so satisfying from an acting point of view, isn't it, to really master something? I have got this for this scene. So being on set, then, how did you feel? Because is this one of the first?
So I've done a bit of screen work before, but this is the first TV job that I've done, and I'm just incredibly lucky. I think my first filming days were with Finn. Our work is just the two of us. And he's just such a welcoming, giving actor. And luckily we were able to just make each other laugh a lot before we got on set, which made it just a lot easier to find that friendship that they have. And similarly with Shalom, she's just very like the complete opposite to Estella. You know, she's very like warm and giving. And having real friendships with the two of them made that a lot easier. And neither of them made me feel, you know, I have a lot less experience than they both do. And they never made me feel that for a second.
When you sent the self-tape, were you thinking, or were you thinking, I really want to get this? Where were you in that whole process of thinking, I so want to play this part, but I don't think I'm going to get it? Or what were your thoughts?
I think that what I've kind of realised is like, you have to just let go the minute you've sent it off. So I don't really get too excited. It's harder, isn't it, when you're in records and stuff, because you start to be like, oh, maybe. But no, I try not to get too excited until there's actually an offer like being made. Because even then things can change. And I think, you know, your job is just to like, you still got to play that character for a moment, even if it's just a tape or an audition, and to just kind of enjoy that for what that is. And you got to engage anyway. And then, you know, then it's just a whole extra cherry on the cake if you actually get to play the character in full.
So when you first arrived on set, then what were the first bits that you did with Finn? Can you remember? Can you remember the feeling? You know, you go. What did you do on the first day? Were you picked up on a chauffeur? Did you get the tube? Or what?
Well, the first day was actually. Do you remember the really bad storm last year? So I kind of got a trial run, which was probably very good for my confidence. In that, like, we turned up, you know, like 5 a.m. We get into hair and makeup, and then the day got cancelled because the storm was so bad. So that was quite good because I was so nervous that day. It felt like I just sort of had a practice of coming along and getting ready, and then going straight back home again because of the storm. So I can't remember what my first scene was. I think it might be one that's not actually in the final edit, but it would be one of the ones where she's teaching him something. So yeah, we came back and did that again. I think probably about a week later or something when the weather was a bit better.
Was it very different to sort of the stage work in terms of being comfortable in your own skin?
I think I feel very comfortable on screen in that because there isn't that threat with screen of like, you know, if something goes wrong, it's a bit embarrassing and I kind of can apologize for it. Whereas on stage, we've just got to, if I drop a line or something, we've got to figure our way around it. In some ways, it's a lot. I think stage is a lot harder, but they've both got their tricky.
Yeah,
their tricky bit.
Absolutely. My feeling about stage, though, is of course that so much more responsibility rests on the actors. And honestly, I find that empowering. I feel like I'm in the driving seat. Whereas if you're not called, you don't call action, you know, there's so many extra things that are out of your control.
Obviously, there's a certain pace at which you have to work on set, but I did feel like everyone was very patient, like had a great team across all departments. You know, when you have a lovely first AD, you know, everyone kind of just comes together and it makes it feel safer in a way that, you know, when you're shoved on stage and there's an audience there, you've just got to keep going. So but maybe I'm saying that just because I'm doing a theatre job at the moment. So maybe I'm feeling the fear in what I'm currently doing.
You've got a long tour ahead, though, haven't you? You'll definitely, if you feel the fear, you'll be over it by the end, I think.
Yeah.
But so when you were on set, were there any fluffs that were hilarious that you can tell us that we'll never see?
I can't really think of anything in particular that stands out. I know when me and Finn were dancing, there was a lot of us like getting stuck in the mud. I think we did some wider shots that I don't know if they're actually in the series. They might be in a couple of the trailers or something, but where I nearly went flying like multiple times and had to kind of like, just grab onto Finn and try and get my balance. Because dancing around in lots of wet mud whilst also wearing multiple layers and a very long dress is quite a tricky thing to do. And I don't have the best balance anyway. So.
And did you get to rehearse the scenes much before you had to shoot them? Did you rehearse them on location or did you have a separate meet?
We did a tiny, I think we did a tiny bit beforehand, but mostly it was just on location, you know, just before we did it. We did have some rehearsals for the dancing, which was fun. Yeah, so just a little bit of time, but in some ways that kind of keeps it. You can't overthink too much. I think you have to kind of follow your instincts and then just trust the direction that you're getting and just like lean into that.
Yes. Well, I've got something to show you now.
I
managed to pick up a copy of this. So could you tell us what this is? It's only just arrived, so I'm going to be completely honest and straight with you here and say I've not read it. I've not opened it yet. But
Well, I'm furious with you. How could you not?
exactly.
You've got it.
I'll come back in half an hour. Sorry, give me a second. But so this, I'm holding up a copy of your poems, your collection of poems called Humaning. You're also then a writer. Can you tell us a bit about this? Because I will put a link in the description to this.
That'd be lovely. Well, yes. So I'm a poet and a playwright. But really, it started with poetry, and sort of partly through the spoken word scene, but a lot of page poetry as well. And so that pamphlet was published in, I think November. I'm going to say 2021 by Flip Tie. I had an incredible editor called Jacob Sandler Rose. So yeah, it's just a collection of poems kind of about, well, identity and womanhood and finding yourself, and I guess some of the themes that come up in Great Expectations, but maybe more specifically through like a female lens and a northern lens. Yeah, you'll have to send me an email and let me know what you think.
I will do. Oh, no, I'm really looking forward to reading it. So, Laurie, this has been fantastic. I've so enjoyed meeting you across the Atlantic. Yeah. I hope the rest of the tour goes really well for you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone, before I go, you'll be pleased to know that I've now read Laurie's poetry collection, Humaning, and it's excellent. The colour red is very striking, in the form of lipstick or blood, or skin, its frailty in a hot climate, or its power, seen through the life of Maud Wagner. There's also a response to Terence Hayes' Nuclear, and in line with the human condition, there's humour, with moments of clumsiness and awkwardness laid bare, plus alternate realities discovered when playing Sims with your partner. If you want to know more, you can follow the link in the description to purchase a copy. See you next time. Thank you for listening to Charles Dickens' A Brain on Fire. If you're enjoying these episodes and would like to make a small donation towards the costs of producing them, please follow the link at the bottom of the description and you can make a donation there. Every coffee you buy makes a huge difference. Thank you ever so much, and see you next time.